It's the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We will be here with you for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports content. And if you are a local professional sports fan, this was a great weekend for you. If you are a local college sports fan, maybe not so much. But with that said, Wade, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Mo. Good to be with you. Good to see everybody. Yeah, we got a massive show. And you're right. If you're a professional sports fan, at least yesterday you were feeling pretty good. Maybe on Saturday. But, you're riding okay. College, if you're the Vols, I guess. At least you didn't lose. So a couple ways to spin that, a couple ways to look at it. But, yeah, big show lined up for the next few hours here today.
Oh, for sure, man. In the next hour, in hour number 2, we will be joined by our buddy from footballscoop.com, John D. Bryce, to talk a little college football. We got plenty of college football coming at you. Again, Bryce is going to help us kind of sort some FBS stuff out at a national level. In the next segment, we'll be joined by NUBYJAS WILBORN. We'll talk a little Titans with him because I think he was on the beat the last time they won a game prior to yesterday. But get some thoughts from him, and we'll probably kind of delve a little bit into some Penn State football while we got him as well. That ought to be fun. But, yeah, a lot of college football to get into on today's show, but we're going to talk some Titans with NUBYJAS. We're going to talk some college ball with John Bryce from footballscoop.com in the next hour. We will also get into a little hockey. We'll get into some baseball as the playoffs continue. We will talk a little soccer, some women's basketball postseason play as well. Also some racing a lot of postseason, but some preseason to get into, as well as the Grizzlies get ready for their preseason opener tonight. And they're kind of used to having their top gun unavailable. So it's no great shock that John Morant won't be taking the court for the Grizzlies tonight. But we'll talk more about that later in the show as well. But again, a lot to get into. Everything going on. Well, we got all the major sports either playing or getting ready to play right now. So it's that great time of year, huh, Wade?
Yeah, I mean, best month of the year by a long shot if you're a sports fan or otherwise. And so much kind of crossover. Yeah, you mentioned NHL. Not many pods would dare to go to the lengths of to bring you some preseason Grizzlies news, but we're going to do that today. So a lot to cover in addition to the big stuff that's going on. This is by far, we're going to have a sports equinox later this month too. So, I mean, it's kind of just the perfect time of the year, really, all things considered.
There we go. So with all that said.
Hey, and real quick, Mo, this was, I felt bad for not mentioning this on Friday. This was designated pumpkin patch / do your chores around the house weekend. But even though it was the designated weekend to do all that, because the slates, pro and college, were not necessarily the greatest, we still got some drama. But you had a chance to do that. So kudos to those that planned accordingly, because the next couple weekends are going to be massive. And when you get drug out for those, you're going to wish that you had that one back. So that was kind of my strategy entering the weekend, and it paid off in spades.
Sometimes you got to be proactive, right?
Yeah, you got to look at that calendar and you got to know, oh man, you're willing to go out and do this today? Oh, absolutely. You bet your bottom dollar I'm willing to go out and do this today.
Because you're not
you always like to sit at home and watch, from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. NFL football. Well, I'm being nice today, so imagine that.
Score those points.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Look at you. I hear you. Good stuff. Y'all listen to Wade. He's got it all figured out. Check that schedule. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into what we got going on today. Let's start with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
The rundown is here, folks, but before we get into it, I want to remind you that each and every single Monday, our rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. CCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831, or you can visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Let's get started with some Friday night high school finals. Antioch taking care of Overton 55-10 on Friday night. Battle Creek picking up a 40-16 win over Montgomery Central, the first region victory for the Grizzlies in their first year of varsity play. Brentwood Academy with a 35-0 win over MUS. Big Region 6-3A matchup goes to Camden Central as they take care of Sycamore 35-21. Rossview with a 27-6 win over Cane Ridge. It was Giles County 42, Cascade 8. Waverly defeating Cheatham County 48-6. Henry County with a 41-8 win over Clarksville Northeast. Brentwood 49, Coffee County 7. Creekwood 34, Clarksville Northwest 6. Battleground Academy 55-10 over Davidson Academy. Eagleville with a 34-7 win over Moore County. It was East Robertson 42, East Hickman 12. Ensworth 35-6 over Knoxville Catholic. Ezel Harding with a 35-21 win over Clarksville Academy. Fairview blanking Harper 39-0. Lipscomb Academy 20, Father Ryan 14. Columbia Central goes to Franklin County, picks up a 44-0 victory. It was Franklin Road Academy 42, Good Pasture 7. Talked to Justin Geisinger on Thursday on Coach's Corner, and the Panthers stay undefeated following his appearance. Friendship Christian 37, Donaldson Christian 7. It was Gallatin 18, Mount Juliet 10. Green Hill with a 48-7 win over Glencliff. Hendersonville blanked Summit 28-0. Nolansville 31, Hillsborough 14. Houston County with a 26-14 win over Hickman County. And Stewart County defeats Innovation Academy 46-0.
Other scores from Friday night.
Let's
Joe
continue.
Burns defeating Red Boiling Springs 62-0. Kenwood topping Maplewood 37-12. Page blanking Lawson on Friday night 40-0. It was Lebanon 42, Wilson Central 12. Springfield with a 32-7 victory over Liberty Creek. CPA slipping by Montgomery Bell Academy 16-15 was your final there. Marshall County cruising over Columbia Academy 45-0. McGavock downing West Creek 28-8. It was Franklin Christian with a 43-20 victory over Mount Juliet Christian. Mount Pleasant defeating Adamsville Friday night 28-0. Pearl Cone with a 3-point victory 31-28 your final over Bartlett. It was Grace Christian Franklin 28-14 over Pope John Paul II. Portland 48, Hunters Lane nothing. Providence Christian with a 42-14 victory over Christian Community. Richland blanking Cornersville in the Battle of Buford Station 31-0. It was Sequatchie County 35, Watertown 28. Big region showdown there. Beach with a 59-21 victory over Station Camp. Gordonsville topping Westmoreland 41-zip. White House blanking Greenbrier 43-0. White House Heritage knocking Whites Creek from the ranks of the unbeaten 21-18 was your final there on Friday night. Zion Christian defeating Pickett County. Mo on hand as the Bears. Suffered a tough L, but Zion Christian with a 43-0. You sponsored the show, folks, and you reel off a 43-0 victory. You couldn't have timed that any better for a Monday.
There we go. Absolutely.
Volleyball scores from Friday. Got a few. Summertown with a 3-1 victory over Columbia. Blackman defeating Oakland 3-2. And Siegel did the same 3-2 again over Riverdale. Girls soccer from Saturday. St. Cecilia Academy 3. Antioch nothing. BGA with a 3-0 win over Columbia Academy. And Lead Academy blanked Independence Academy 6-zip. WNBA finals began on Friday night. And the Aces outlasted the Mercury 89-86. Was your professional women's basketball score on Friday night. Game 1 to the Aces.
Saturday morning, 11 o'clock kickoff as Dixon County took care of business at Creekwood, downing Spring Hill 24-17. In high school volleyball on Saturday, it was Blackman sweeping Siegel 3-0. College football action on Saturday. Eastern Illinois with a 31-7 win over Tennessee State. Vanderbilt falls at Alabama 30-14, and Austin Peay continues to roll 44-30 over West Georgia. MLS action, the boys in gold go on the road and get a point as they and CF Montreal play to a 1-1 draw. Major League Baseball action, these are games 1 of the respective league divisional series. Milwaukee with a 9-3 win over the Cubs. It was Toronto 10, the Yankees 1. Dodgers with a 5-3 win at Philadelphia, and Detroit with a 3-2 victory over Seattle.
Sunday action, I told you guys game 1 on Friday night. Game 2, much more lopsided, much more in favor of the Aces, who now own that series 2-0. The Aces defeating the Mercury 91-78 again yesterday afternoon. MLB scores from yesterday, it was Toronto 13, the Yankees 7, and it was the Mariners defeating the Tigers 3-2. NFL action, somehow, some way, folks, the Tennessee Titans knock off the Arizona Cardinals. Your final yesterday out in the desert was 22-21.
Today's volleyball action. This was a 12 o'clock start as Laverne and Smyrna faced off, followed at 2 o'clock by White County and Stewart's Creek. 6 o'clock starts for Forest at, I think that's Battle Creek at Forest. I'm pretty sure that's Battle Creek at Forest. Also, Portland and Gallatin will play at 6. Santa Fe plays at Moore County at 6. Giles County plays at Murfreesboro Central. That is a 6 o'clock start, as is Cascade at Spring Hill. No times provided for Middle Tennessee Christian at Friendship Christian or Providence Christian at Good Pasture in postseason volleyball play. Girls soccer action. 5 o'clock first touch when Liberty Creek goes to Springfield. At 6:30, Watertown visits Jackson County. Giles County is at Shelbyville at 7. Also at 7, it's Beach at Station Camp. National League Division Series Game 2. It's the Dodgers at Philadelphia. That is a 5:08 first pitch. You can see it on TBS. Followed at 8:08, also on TBS. It's the Cubs and the Brewers in Game 2 at American Family Field. There's also a Monday Night Football game tonight, is there not?
Chiefs and Jags.
Chiefs and Jags. 7:15 kickoff. You can see it on ABC. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And like I said, if you are a local pro sports fan in the Nashville area, you're feeling pretty good right about now because the Nashville Predators addressed their lone holdout over the weekend. Luke Evangelista is under a contract extension. The last remaining restricted free agent in the National Hockey League. 23-year-old forward, and the Predators agreed to a 2-year, $6 million extension. $3 million AAV for those mathematically challenged there. And again, this is pretty big because given their age on one end of the roster at forward and their inexperience on the other end, getting Evangelista under contract and back in camp is a big deal because he was not the latter. Back-to-back 30-point seasons for Evangelista, a big piece of whatever puzzle the Predators have heading into this season, expected to be available for the season opener against visiting Columbus at Bridgestone Arena after agreeing to terms over the weekend.
Big news coming down. You're right, Mo. It is exciting news in the short term, if nothing else, for Nashville. And this was a deal that, quite frankly, we talked about it last week, needed to get done. Really more so on the Predators' end of things than anything. But you look through this, and yes, you got the deal done. But if you're Evangelista, I'm almost kind of wondering how you arrive at this situation, because two things we know. Number one, we know he is a bright and promising young player that the franchise kind of needs. We also know that the salary cap is going up next year. So signing this deal, they're using Jack Quinn as a fellow, comp kind of across the NHL. And his deal, is kind of similar. But it feels like, for a guy that has done so much, and I mentioned kind of really kept your offense kind of afloat at times last year, or at least gave you some bright spots, Felt like maybe a little bit of shortchanging going on in the grand scheme of things, but at least as we sit here today, you got the deal done, and at least for today, you can feel kind of good that you got your guy back in camp now.
Yeah, you can feel pretty good about it. It kind of started kind of rough if the numbers that were out there are to be believed, because this came from a $1 million AAV to a 3-year, $3 million annual value deal for Evangelista here. So Nashville started low, allegedly, finally got to the right number or the sufficient number for Evangelista to sign on the dotted line. And you know what I wonder, Wade, is, and I mean, we're talking more money than I would ever see at any point, but you know, what kind of feelings are there in the aftermath of something like this? You know, what kind of residue is there? Does Evangelista feel like he got lowballed in this situation? Is that something you remember, or do you just take away, you know, business is business and we got it done and let's go forward? I wonder how that works out.
Yeah, you know, he's Canadian, so he's probably maybe at least a little, you know, nicer with the situation than some other folks might be, just by pure national niceties there. But
I don't know, but I mean, they've kind of gone elbows up here of late, so I mean, maybe.
Hey, and so with that being said, you know, we won't really know until 2 years from now when, you know, we'll find out if he's still on the team, whether maybe he gets flipped somewhere within that 2-year window, or, you know, if 2 years from now, I mentioned it, we're talking about a 10% cap increase this time next year. And so signing this deal does feel like you maybe left some money on the table. But yeah, maybe you chalk that up to, hey, you guys have kind of done right by me to the start of my career. I'm going to do right by you. I'll settle for a little less just to kind of keep things going. And what this does will, you know, potentially save some money for Nashville to maybe make a run at somebody down the road, whether that's, you know, via a trade and, you know, a sign and trade type situation later this year, or, you know, somebody next off season. But the fact is, got a guy in that you desperately needed to. If this had drug on any longer, you're running the risk of you're already entering with a little bit of a whimper coming into this season. If you had gone in with some real kind of bad vibes and bad juju, that would not have been great. So kind of good to see both sides come together. You at least got a little more juice of optimism heading into Thursday.
No doubt. 10 goals, 32 points last year. Evangelista posted for the Preds. Meanwhile, it's sounding more and more like Brady Martin is going to break camp with the Preds and be around for that Thursday night season opener against Columbus. So keep an eye on that as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you're wanting to make a splash, if you're wanting to, you know, erase any, I mean, if nothing else, people are going to tune in to watch some of your games to see this kid, right? I mean, if nothing else, no matter how many games you lose, no matter how many you lost last year, there's going to be that curiosity factor of seeing a kid at such a young age break through. We see it time and time again with the youngsters when they do latch on, but we're talking about real bona fide superstars, you know, Connor Bedard type situations. But not to say that Brady couldn't, you know, do that. And yeah, this is if he does end up there on Thursday, you're going to get some extra eyeballs from not only casuals, but also across the league as people try and see what the plans are for this youngster with the new Preds.
Absolutely. Let's take a break as we get things started here with the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about perhaps the most unlikely Titans victory in 20 years. Stick around when we come back with NUBYJAS WILBORN to talk Titans.
got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mint Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
333.
Busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Not
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
As we await the arrival of NUBYJAS WILBORN here to the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we can tell you again, Titans 22, Cardinals 21, final out in Arizona yesterday as at least one long national nightmare is over, I guess. The Titans breaking a 10-game skid with that outcome. Wade, I'm still trying to decide, though, whether the Titans won or the Cardinals lost.
You know, for the positivity factor on this podcast, I'm going to go with the Titans win. That's all. That's how I'm going to frame it. Yep, that's what I've arrived at.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Well, if the Titans won, they certainly, you're probably not wrong, because here's the deal. A lot of teams can try to hand you something. Heck, we saw it in week 1 this season when the Titans went to Denver. I mean, Denver tried to give the Titans that ball game. The Titans wouldn't take it. You can get breaks and not take advantage of them. At least they did this time around, although it would have been pretty mystifying had they not. But, we have with us former Titans beat writer for SI.com, NUBYJAS WILBORN, joining us. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, how's it going, brothers?
What's up?
It's going okay, man. Things are nice out at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park for now, anyway. Again,
the first time in 2 years?
Close. I mean, you were here the last time they won a ball game, right?
Wow. Yeah. No, I think wow. Yeah. Ooh, buddy. One day we'll get into me publicly telling why I'm not covering that team anymore. That has nothing to do with the team or the city, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. We'll save my troubles for another time.
Understood. But I mean, all of us were kind of watching from a distance, obviously. But again, the Cardinals kind of gift wrapped that thing in the fourth quarter yesterday.
Well, I mean, starting with probably one of the more embarrassing plays by a running back. I mean, you go for 76 yards, you're right there, and you just drop it. I mean, you dropped it for no really good reason. And
why does this continue to happen, NUBYJAS? I saw it at the collegiate level, or I saw a clip of a college receiver doing the same thing here about a week and a half ago. I mean, why can't you how many times do you have to see? They say that smart people learn from their mistakes, wise people learn from the mistakes of others. I mean, why can't you watch somebody else do that and just run through the end zone if you got to drop the ball?
You know, that's a good question, and I wish I had an answer to it, because if I had an answer to it, I'm pretty sure I could probably make some money selling that answer to some of these football programs on the pro, high school, and college level. I will imagine this will probably be in that reel of tapes. And where I do feel bad for the young man here, and I say young man relatively speaking, he's a grown-up, but still, I mean, what, he's under 30, you know, hey, this is going to be a part of his life story for the rest of his life now. And I think from what I heard, I think he only had 3 touchdowns in his whole career, and that would have been his 4th. Perhaps, you know, maybe he's not used to being there because he hadn't been there a whole lot. You know, they say act like you've been there before. Well, I guess he hasn't, at least not consistently. And hey, man, I don't know, man. Just one of those tough situations. And as I do this, and as I have spent time covering teams, being in locker rooms, being around players, I don't know this young man. I never covered him, but these players don't want to mess up, man. I mean, they don't want to make these kind of mistakes. They don't want to be, especially in this era of social media where you could become a meme like this. No, nobody wants that for themselves. That's not what people dream about. I mean, that man dreams about scoring touchdowns, not becoming an embarrassment publicly to his family, to his friends, and everyone. Yes, it's still football. It's just sports. He's a millionaire, but this is still an embarrassing moment that will follow him for the rest of his life.
Yeah, you know, we saw Adonai Mitchell just a couple weeks ago. It feels NUBYJAS like these things come in bunches and come in waves here, and Mitchell is costing the Colts that game versus the Rams, and DeMercado says, you know what, hold my beverage. I'm going to try and one-up you here, inches from the end zone. I mean, he was holding that thing like it was an empty coffee cup, and he just couldn't wait to throw it down. But the Titans, you know, one man's trash, another man's treasure, and DeMercado, who's filling in, by the way. You know, we're not even talking about this guy playing. If James Conner doesn't go, not yet, but man, that, you know, he's only in the spot he's in because of Connor's injury a couple weeks ago. And to your point, NUBYJAS, man, it's frustrating to see a guy who has really played decently well in a couple weeks since filling in have a real gaffe and, like you said, become an instant meme.
Well, yeah, I mean, you go from possibly pretty much putting that game away at that point, at least. You would have made it, 3-score game. You made it very difficult for the Titans to come back, who were struggling on offense, weren't really doing a whole lot on defense, really were playing what has become a very customary Titans-like game as far as just, you know, nothing positive happening for the Titans. I mean, I think that has been pretty much a recurring theme for them over the last couple of years, and they were given a part, and I will say this on behalf of the Titans. It appears that they may have found a quarterback. It appears that Cam Ward seems to be worth where he got drafted. It's funny how it works. Remember when we were told to believe that him and Shador were neck and neck?
You know, I don't know what to make of Shador just because he's in Cleveland.
Well,
you know?
I tell you what, if he can't get past Dylan Gabriel, I don't really. I have an idea what to make of him. Now, yes, you are absolutely right. The Cleveland Browns historically are known for ruining everything. I think they have that since 1999. I think Dylan Gabriel, I think, was number 41. Someone said that we should start treating the Cleveland Browns quarterbacks like we do presidents, where we just call them by their number, you know, like 45, because that's kind of where, you know, it's going since that 99 season. Now, to be fair, I would love to see, I mean, 1999 was a long time ago now, and I would love to see what other teams' quarterbacks, as far as how many starters they run through. It ain't
been 41.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I would imagine that they're probably not more than the Browns, but still, you know, they call the place the factory of sadness for a reason. It's been a tough place, and so, you know, I give Shador a little bit of space on that, but also, did you watch Dylan Gabriel play?
He did not look bad yesterday morning. So
against Brian Flores, who was licking his chops, ready to blitz the skulls out of that guy, and they still almost somehow, some way, pulled off a miraculous victory yesterday.
Well, they have a great defense, and I mean, I think like a really good defense led by Myles Garrett. And you know, hey, Dylan made some plays. He kept it in there. I mean, I don't think he's great, but he kept it on the road at least. But to Cam Ward, I mean, hey man, he looks like so far the best quarterback out of the draft class. I mean, I'm not too impressed with Jackson Dart. I thought Gabriel was okay. I mean, we've not seen Shador yet, and you go on through that quarterback list of the guys who got drafted. Who's better than Cam Ward right now?
Yeah. What's funny is, if you were on Twitter through the first 3 quarters yesterday, there were comments about his lack of accuracy and that kind of thing. But I'll tell you what, in the fourth, he got locked in, and those 2 balls that he threw to Calvin Ridley late were comparable to anything that the best quarterbacks that have played have thrown. So,
well, I tell you what, if you're taking your advice and your perspectives off Twitter, then you're still doing that by now.
Hey, I wasn't. I was just relating that was the topic of conversation.
I'm just saying, I have some piece of property in Omaha to sell you if you're interested. If Twitter is the place you believe for your analysis. People say a lot of things on Twitter, but no, I mean, it wasn't that great at first, but the kid can make plays. He's quicker than he has advertised as far as with his feet and his legs. He can move the pocket enough to extend plays. Now, he's not going to go Mike Vicken or, Lamar Jackson out there with the legs, but he can extend plays well enough and move the pocket enough to really get some guys open. And, I mean, hey, the Titans need something, man, because my short time I spent in Nashville, that's a really tough place for, I think, to build a fan base. I think, one, because let's be real, there's a whole lot to do in Nashville, not just including the Broadway strip that everybody knows about. There's a lot of ways to occupy your time to where you don't have to spend money watching a bad football team in a stadium that it's about to leave in a year that's about to further outprice you, right? So at some point, the Titans have to give Nashville and mid Tennessee something, anything to latch onto, and it appears that Cam Ward is at least the start of that, which is really impressive considering where they were with Will Levis. Which, by the way, I got to say this: people expected a lot out of second-round draft pick in Will Levis, man.
He was billed as the guy.
And seriously, and all through history, how many second-round draft pick quarterbacks have gone on to stardom? I would even say how many quarterbacks that aren't in the top 5 picks historically. I mean, now, yeah, Tom Brady, sure. But again, you can name Tom Brady. You really start – now, Patrick Mahomes is a later first-round pick. I think Aaron Rodgers slipped. Again, I'm naming very specific people.
The aforementioned Lamar Jackson was a late pick. Yeah.
Late first round, yeah. But again, even that, Lamar Jackson wasn't a second-round pick.
True.
Patrick Mahomes wasn't a second-round pick. Brady, obviously, totally different. Whatever. That's once in a generation. But my point is, typically speaking, if you look through history, most of the quarterbacks who have been successful have typically been in that top 10 pick range.
And if yesterday was any indication, maybe like you said, maybe the Titans have their guy. NUBYJAS WILBORN joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we consider the 1-4 Titans following their 22-21 win at Arizona yesterday. As we discussed, Cam, NUBYJAS, maybe his second best throw was picked off because that interception led to one of the keystone copyist plays that I can remember seeing in a minute, man.
Hey, man, you get 2 bad teams together doing bad team things. These kind of things happen, man. I mean, that was a very weird play that bounced off one guy, went off the other guy, and hey, man, they scored off of it. I mean, I can't think of a team in the league that needed a win more than the Tennessee Titans this week.
And I will tell you, man, it was kind of cool that it was Tyler Lockett that recovered that fumble because he had dropped the ball earlier in the game and I can't remember exactly the significance of it, but I do remember him dropping a pretty big ball in the second half there that could have been game changing had he caught it probably. So a little redemption for him after that drop to be the one to recover that ball in the end zone for the touchdown. But here's my question, and I'll ask you and Wade. After that recovery, after that touchdown, could the Titans not have gone not for 2 there, but when they were setting up that game-winning field goal, how much confidence did you have in Joey Sly, who had just missed that extra point? Would you have not tried to score a touchdown there late?
I'm sure they tried. I'm sure.
But I mean, the last couple of plays, though, they ran Cam to the hash and got him down to try to line it up for Sly right there at the end. I thought they had opportunities to try for the end zone there.
I mean,
Only other thing too, though, there you run the thought is you run the clock down. You basically set up an extra point, and you at least don't give Arizona the ball back. You kick the field goal, you win the game. You don't have to. You score the touchdown. The fluke things, like to NUBYJAS' point, bad things happen when you get 2 bad teams together. I mean, it would have been kind of classic Titans, unfortunately, had you rally, score the touchdown, then give up like an 80-yard kickoff return, or fail to get to the landing zone, and you give Murray a chance for a Hail Mary. I mean, a number of different things could have gone bad there.
Yeah, or you fumble it on your way in. Who knows? You don't get the score. I mean, it's one of the things about winning. To me, a lot of times, and especially in the National Football League, where these teams are so close to each other, where the talent is pretty equal. This isn't. No disrespect to Vandy, who I thought actually played a pretty good game against Bama, all things considered. This isn't Vandy 5 years ago where they were everybody's homecoming and you just expected to beat them, right? One, respect to Clark Lee that's not true anymore currently, but also in the NFL, there ain't no Fresno States or insert whatever you think is a mediocre program. Like, even the Titans, as bad as they are, those are still pros on that roster. And there's a roster full of them. And oftentimes in the NFL, the difference between winning and losing really does become mental. It becomes a mindset. It becomes habits. And the Titans had created a lot of losing habits for a long time. And I think the coach, Brian Callahan, who quite honestly, I'm amazed that it's gone this badly for him there. I'm not shocked, but very surprised. He seems so confident, and it has not worked. It basically looks like he's just a guy who hired a bunch of his buddies and jobs, and I don't know what's not working. But yesterday, they were able to find some winning habits, and perhaps they can build on some of those things into – I mean, they're not going to the playoffs or anything like that. Let's just be clear. But I do think they need to start developing – winning habits, at least in situations. And sometimes it's like when you're a basketball player who's struggling from the field, you can't get a shot. The old adage would always be, go get fouled, right? Although they don't drive to the basket anymore, but just saying, it used to be, well, hey, go get fouled, get to the free throw line, sink a couple free throws so you can see the ball going in the net, to then start to kind of remind you what it looks like. And what I think the Titans did there was, let's just get these free throws and go home, and so we can actually see ourselves winning a game.
With that said, NUBYJAS, as you glance now, did the win do enough to maybe think that the Titans have the goods to go on the road yet again and sneak one out against a Vegas team that has certainly underachieved thus far next week?
Oh, yeah, they're gonna be the Raiders, sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, now if you're gonna say, are they gonna get on the roll and compete to win the AFC South, I would have to ask you, are you on some of that Mark Sanchez?
Hey, well, that's the bad thing, NUBYJAS, because obviously we still got Monday Night Football to decide, but the Colts and the Texans both got wins yesterday. So even on a day where the Titans win and kind of snag one that maybe was not supposed to go their way, they get no benefit in terms of your AFC South standings.
No, I mean, hey, man, and no, look, I think the Colts are a better team than we thought they were going to be, obviously. And I think the Texans aren't as bad as they have looked at some of the losses they've had. And the Jaguars, I mean, you had to name the Jaguars, and Liam Cohen seems to have figured something out. Trevor Lawrence is not turning the ball over. He's not making a lot of mistakes. And they're playing pretty sound football right now. So
only loss for the Jags is that fluke game where Browning led the Bengals on the comeback after he came in spot duty after Burrow went down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I had no idea that Liam Cohen was going to be this kind of a coach, especially after the whole Duval, whatever that thing was he did. But hey, he is going to be the king of Duval for real if he keeps on winning like this, because they have been a very pleasant surprise. So I say all that to say the AFC South, which over the last few years has been probably the worst division in the NFL, probably other than the NFC South. All of a sudden, you're looking at the Jags, who seem to be a pretty good team. You're looking at the Colts, who seem to have figured something out, invigorated by the daughter taking over the ownership there. And I still think the Texans have the best quarterback in the division in C.J. Stroud. So I say all that to say the Titans are still in a very precarious position, but they absolutely can go out there and beat Las Vegas. I mean, the Raiders, nah.
Well, they need to beat the Raiders because the next game is back home against a certain New England Patriot team that won on Sunday Night Football last night against the AFC East favorites.
Hey, and people can say, and I understand this market's probably not the best place to be complimenting Mike Vrabel, but that man can coach some football. I mean, and I understand how. I mean, I was there when everything went down towards the end. I was writing about it, and I didn't get to know Vrabel as well because I came towards the tail end, but I could definitely tell pretty quickly that marriage had run its course. I tell you what, the Titans aren't necessarily looking good in this right now because Braves has something going up there in New England, and I think Drake May is starting to show himself to be at least a top 15 caliber starter. And I think in this NFL, if you're a top half starter, you can win playoff games.
Sure.
And possibly, depending on how it breaks, a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying the Patriots going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm just saying that they have the type of quarterback that you could win playoff games with Drake May. Or at least he's starting to look like it. And Vrabel, hey, man, I mean, you looked at his record in Tennessee. You looked at all what he accomplished. That man can coach football. And I really wonder how much the Titans are going to regret making that move on from him, especially since it hasn't seemed to work with Brian Callahan.
Yeah, they've made a lot of regrettable moves, either being regretted or to be regretted, one or the other. NUBYJAS WILBORN joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And NUBYJAS, before we let you get away, you have also had experience with a certain college football program that had its issues this weekend. With or James Franklin?
Hey, man. Look, man. You can't really defend James Franklin this week. It is not. I texted a couple good friends of mine who I won't name who are in the football world. And I just was like, yo, this is not a good week to be a James Franklin defender. And they sent me the prayer hands emoji as a response. I mean, because okay. The Oregon game, hey, man, that is big. That was a part of the theme, even though I didn't State did portray itself well. They had a nice comeback, made that game interesting, and could have possibly won, maybe even should have won that game, but they didn't. But that has become a part of the recurring theme of Franklin teams, not being able to beat those top 5 teams, being right at that cusp. Now, I would also say, just in general, I don't know who Penn State thinks it actually is, considering they haven't won a national championship since 1986, I believe. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at their history, when they did win, a lot of that was because they're one of the first schools in, I guess, well, Central PA is interesting because it's not really in the Northeast like Philly, and it's not quite Appalachia like Pittsburgh. It is right dab in what they call Pennsyltucky, which is a whole other thing. It's an own entity. But my point is they were willing to get black players up there before a lot of its rivals. You know what I'm saying? Which definitely helped them with Joe Paterno, along with a lot of other things that returned a blind eye to at Penn State that we know about. Okay. that that also had some impact. My point is, I don't know who Penn State thinks they are, because there's no way you think you're Ohio State. Ohio State is probably, I would say, Saban's run at Bama was probably the best run we've seen ever. But as far as programs, you go coach at Ohio State, you're going to get 9-10 wins every year. That machine is going to run with or without you. That's why they could pick on Ryan Day the way they have, even though he just won a national championship. My point is, you ain't Ohio State and you ain't Michigan. Okay? Like, you're not. All right?
Right.
Like, if you're Ohio State, if you're Penn State, historically, you're not those. State college is a very difficult place to get to as far as visiting. Also, it's
really is.
Where, not exactly very DEI friendly there, if you catch my drift, in state college. So I say all this to say, James Franklin in one way has done a lot and has pulled miracles to get Penn State to be as good as they have been under him. Because you forget, after Bill O'Brien left, because Bill O'Brien came after the whole Joe Paterno scandal and all the things that came with that.
Right.
Okay? And did okay, but then Franklin took it to another level. I don't know how high Penn State can go. All that said, even factoring in the rough trip from going east to west, even factoring in the day game, going that travel and all that stuff, you cannot lose to an 0-4 UCLA team. You just,
an 0-4 UCLA team that lost to New Mexico, that fired its coach.
Right. They fired his coach and had Neuheisel's boy up there looking like sunshine with his hair just flowing all in the wind.
It was like a soccer manager in EPL, NUBYJAS, where they're throwing him up in the air. I mean, celebrating. It was scenes.
Which also is a whole other thing where the head coach is a black guy, but they're celebrating with the white coach OC. But okay, whatever.
Different discussion. Yes.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But we'll get there another day. But my point is, you, even with having to go west, even with all the things, you cannot lose that game. And it is very difficult to defend James Franklin when he loses a game like that, especially coming off that Oregon loss. Because right now, here's the deal. They still have to play Ohio State. Oh, and by the way, there's another tough game on that schedule, Mo. Yeah, those boys wearing that Crimson Cream out of Bloomington, Indiana. And let me tell you something. Old Cinetti's going to be ready, okay? And they're going to be ready to come into Penn State and blast the Nittany Lions in State College. That's what Indiana's going to want to do. And they still have to play Nebraska, which you never know how that's going to be. They don't play as often. My point is, this could go really off the rails for a Penn State team that was ranked number 2 in most polls, that is not ranked now, and they shouldn't be ranked now because they hadn't beaten anybody. They struggled against Villanova. They struggled against Nevada. I don't know, man, because Drew Allen don't look to be it. Drew Allen does not look to be the answer, and it could get real ugly for James. Now his buyout is $50 million, which also is difficult to get official numbers on because of how Penn State, they're very difficult to file a FOIA request for the audience. That is Freedom of Information Act. And so because of their status, they could be very difficult to get accurate information on. But several sources that I've talked to told me that buyout is around $50 million, and I don't think Penn State has the stomach to pay that kind of buyout.
Right.
I also don't know how much longer James Franklin can do this, and he might be better off looking at one of these other high-profile openings that come up. Like University of Florida is going to have an opening. Maybe Auburn may have an opening, depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks. Because I don't. At
the same time, though, NUBYJAS, and real quick, there's a piece on CBS Sports saying that very thing. But he's going to be a tough sell in Florida, in particular. Florida that just beat Texas, hiring a guy that just lost to UCLA.
I mean, hey man, you can sell all types of dreams once it comes time to sell the dream. But yeah, if you had to do it today, probably not so great. But I'm just wondering, and it's kind of interesting because in the state of Pennsylvania, you could argue Mike Tomlin's going through similar things with the Steelers, and you may have to wonder, is it time? Would it be smart for Franklin to be like, hey, I've gotten as far as I could get here and let me roll out? Because here's the thing. If Franklin does leave that program, Penn State would have to get an upgrade. And as bad as it looks right now for Franklin, he's still one of the top 5 or 10 coaches in college football.
Still one of the top 5 guys, and you're right, it may be too big for your britches type feels with Penn State a little bit, NUBYJAS. But my thing is, guys, you can have the big game James narrative. You can't all of a sudden be small game James as well. You got to do one or the other. You can only lose in big games or you can only lose in small games. You can't lose in both.
Well, because the reason why the previous stuff had been so big is because they always win these other games.
Correct.
Like they always beat everybody. The thing was always like when they played Ohio State, Michigan every year before the Big Ten expanded to the West Coast, which we're not going there. But when they had to change the schedule around, my point is that's a tough schedule having to play those 2 schools, Michigan and Ohio State, every year, right? And the record reflects. I think he's 1-10 against Ohio State. I think he's like 2-7 against Michigan. But you can let that ride when you beat Iowa and you beat Indiana and you beat Minnesota and you beat, all the other Big Ten schools in Maryland and you blast them and then you win your bowl game. Yeah, it's not a national championship, but it's still pretty high up there and it's better off than what you were before he got there. That being said, you cannot lose to UCLA. I don't even know how to say it. I was at a spot, which is funny, because the Bama Vandy game was on, but I was in Pittsburgh visiting family and stuff and hanging out with, friends, if you will. And I was like, hey, I want to watch the Vandy Bama game, right? And so someone else came and said, hey, I want to watch the Penn State game. And I was like, well, we are in the state of Pennsylvania, but I do want to. And they end up putting it on 4th screen. And I was like, well, are you guys actually worried about UCLA? And they said yes. And then sure enough,
Nico game calling.
I was like, hey, man, which is a whole other thing, which how all this college football stuff ties in. Nico, who should have still been at Tennessee, in my opinion. And I think Nico leaving Tennessee hurt Tennessee too. Because I do not think they're as good as they would be with him. But man, he has not been good without them. But hey, he had a game. He put up 42 against Penn State, against what is supposed to be a very good defense who could not figure it out there in their Rose Bowl. And you would think that Penn State, even though they don't normally play UCLA up until the last couple of years, that program has historically gone to the Rose Bowl. So you would think that they would have a plan. I think they tried to do it. And I know those long trips are hard, but nobody wants to hear that because Oregon flew all that way and came and beat you up in your home stadium.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. It's going to be tough for James. Maybe Clark Lee gets a big job and James Franklin goes back.
Oh, goodness. NUBYJAS WILBORN dropping bombs here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. NUBYJAS, as always, we appreciate it. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all be good, man.
See you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Let's get a quick break here as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back, talk a little baseball. Stay tuned.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
October 6, 1957, Eddie Matthews walked off the New York Yankees following Johnny Logan's 10th inning game-tying double with a 2-run home run as the Milwaukee Braves evened the World Series at 2 games apiece with a 7-5 victory. Logan drove in Nippy Jones, who led off the inning getting hit on the foot by a Tommy Byrne pitch, questioned but proven by the black shoe polish smudge on the ball. Milwaukee led 4-1 early as Hank Aaron's 3-run homer keyed a 4-run fourth. The Braves and the Yankees split the next 2 games before Milwaukee won 5-0 at Yankee Stadium for the title. That was this day in Braves history. ALDS action. Again, Toronto with a 13-7 win over the Yankees yesterday, taking a 2-0 lead in that series after beating the Yankees 10-1 in Game 1. Toronto has scored 23 runs in 2 games. Seattle and Detroit have split 3-2 decisions. Detroit winning on Saturday, Seattle winning yesterday, getting a couple of home runs from Jorge Polanco off Skubal in a no decision, and then Julio Rodriguez scored driving in the winning run last night. That looks like a fun series, man. It gets going back again tomorrow, games 3 in Detroit and at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, huge bounce-back victory for the Mariners, who desperately needed one. All that momentum could have been lost, could have been scratched, right, if not for the theatrics down the stretch. He kind of pickled the beast a little bit in the sense, yeah, Skubal flirts with double digits, didn't certainly go for 14 like we saw the other day, but rang up 9 Mariners. But then, as fate would have it, Rodriguez, who had homered, I believe, in his first AB in the series on Saturday, and then comes back. He's your hero down the stretch. Seattle can dare to dream yet again, because it would have looked pretty grim had they not pulled it off last night.
Yeah, and you know they were sitting pretty good there again with the 2 solo home runs from Polanco early until Torkelson inside out of the ball down the right field line, and I still don't know how he got that ball on that swing to go where it did, but he drove in a pair of runs with that double to right to tie it up. And then, like we said, Rodriguez late drives in Raleigh for the game winner there. Fun series. Game 2 tonight in the NLDS. Well, one of those game 2s is here in about 10 minutes as the Dodgers and the Phillies get after it. The Dodgers having won game 1 on Saturday. And then again, Cubs and Milwaukee game 2 late this afternoon or later this evening. Milwaukee trying to build on that 1-0 lead at home. Interesting matchups.
Yeah, and you know, the Phillies, man, it was rolling until it wasn't. Talk about some late theatrics as the Hernandez's, plural, strike down the stretch in Philly, looking like they were rolling. Talk about a tough weekend. If you are a Penn State, Phillies, Eagles fan, you're really down bad after what you saw this weekend. But yeah, chance to hopefully try and right the wrong because they desperately, it feels like, need to win. It feels like if LA can come back and with a second victory after what we saw Saturday and then roll one up today, it would be west. Too much for them yet to overcome.
Yeah, I misspoke. That game is not a 308 start. It's a 508 start. So you got a little longer to wait on Dodgers and Phillies. Cubs and Milwaukee, 808. Again, both those games are on TBS tonight. So, check that out if you want to see some postseason baseball. Let's take a break as we close out hour number 1 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Let's come back and talk a little bit more football. Some we've touched on, but we're going to get in detail on other stuff, just interesting stuff from the weekend. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's hour number 2 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. And, you know, if we had said that one of the two teams playing in tonight's Monday night football matchup was 3-1 and the other was 2-2, and we told you that the teams were Kansas City and Jacksonville, I don't think you'd have guessed which one is 3-1.
Probably wouldn't
it
have
ain't
guessed,
the Chiefs.
Yeah, probably wouldn't have guessed that. And probably, you know, what if we'd have told you that one team should be 4-0 and one team should be worse than 2-2 right now?
That too. Yeah. Yeah. Kansas City kind of fighting it right now, man. You know, those windows don't stay open forever, Wade. Are you seeing it? Are we seeing it close in Kansas City?
We won't know till the playoffs, and everything will be decided then. We could have this Chiefs team limp into the playoffs with the ugliest record in this entire run, and then if they go on and win the Super Bowl, nobody will really care or really give much thought to it. One thing, though, that has obviously boosted them these last 2 weeks is Xavier Worthy returning from the friendly fire we saw down in Brazil, where he was decapitated by his own teammate there to start the season. He's back, and he is, for a team that kind of gets by on limited kind of playmakers at this point. They're relying on basically Mahomes just carrying the team to whatever it can get. X Factor Worthy right there, being back in the mix, has reaped the benefits, obviously. It's going to be fun watching him tonight and seeing if they can get on a roll. They got a tough one, tricky one tonight, and then they got to turn right back around and play the Lions next week. So it's not imperative that they win all these games. The division, you know, is what the division is, and who knows, they might still be able to fluke a run together. But it feels like, yeah, they could still sneak into the playoffs, and as long as they make a run, we'll still be talking glowingly about this team, regardless of what the regular season record ends up.
Kind of the national coming out party for Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter tonight, I guess, huh?
Perhaps, you know, he's played decently well. I think a lot of folks would say on the defensive side of the ball, still trying to figure out, you know, if or what that kind of gimmick offensive role perhaps is. Be fun to see, you know, for the casuals, it'd be electric tonight if you saw him explode on a nice play offensively, and it'd be fun to see Worthy kind of match that. I don't know that either one of those are in the cards. I feel like we're in store for an ugly, kind of gritted out, grindy type game tonight. A game that is befitting kind of these two franchises.
Wade, you're way more familiar with the sports books and the action than I am, but do we see prop bets with Jacksonville on how many snaps Hunter gets on either side of the ball or anything like that? Has there been anything like that this season, or to your knowledge?
Not that I've seen. You can bet on a lot of stuff, especially if you go offshore, you know, and get on some of these other fringe websites. I would not recommend that, but you could do just about anything. But no, I don't know that we've seen any of that. The closest you can get is you could hypothetically still bet on Travis Hunter to, you know, be your offensive rookie of the year, where he is currently listed at 50-1. You could also perhaps obviously bet him on your defensive player, the rookie of the year, where he's listed at a little closer, more value, perhaps at 40-1. So that's about as close as you can realistically get on that.
Okay. Among yesterday's outcomes, we've talked a little bit about the Texans. They put enough together for a 44-10 win over a injury-riddled Baltimore Ravens squad yesterday, but John Harbaugh and his defensive staff kind of drawing some fire at this point as they fall to 1-4 with that loss. Is Harbaugh in trouble, Wade?
It depends on who you ask. I got a couple really close Ravens friends that live and die on them each and every single week, and they live in the area, and they said 2 weeks ago that things are not good with this team, and that was even before the Lamar Jackson injury. That was after them getting roughed up by the Lions. And then we saw what happened with the Chiefs. We certainly saw what happened yesterday against the Texans. And yeah, depending on who you ask, the insiders and, the folks in the area, they feel like this might be the end. Kind of to NUBYJAS' point a little bit with Vrabel. I mean, sometimes the marriage just runs its course, and the Ravens have gotten by with Harbaugh grasping wins when he shouldn't have necessarily grabbed them, and then losing games, certainly, that he's not necessarily supposed to lose. And they still have time to kind of right the ship. In the AFC, as I've mentioned a couple times, it does reach a proverbial cliff, and the bad teams, it really drops off a cliff. So the Ravens still have time to at least kind of become in the middle of the pack. And like the Chiefs a moment ago, it'll be determined by their postseason run at that point, what kind of season they have. But yeah, the Sharks are kind of circling, especially locally for Harbaugh.
Going to be interesting to keep
and
an eye on.
And especially on defense, right? I mean, we're talking about a team that gave up 38 to the Lions, 37 to the Chiefs, and then yesterday gave up 44 to the Texans. And, I know the offense for the Ravens predicates, how much time your defense is spending on the field and things like that, but woof, those are horrific numbers. This defense has not looked like that in a long, long time. And the other question mark coming out of this, and again, no disrespect to Cooper Rush, but Lamar Jackson, he ain't. And that offense looks totally different when he's not there. But when he's not in there, you kind of almost start wondering, what's up with Derrick Henry? A little bit of a milk carton. We've seen this guy go for nearly 200 yards in the week 1 opener. Has not looked great ever since. The fumbling issues were the storyline early, but this guy has not going. 169 yards in week 1, Mo. 23, 50, 42, 33 in his next 4 games.
That ain't good. And as you said, giving up 44 yesterday to a Houston team that, scored 26 against the Titans a week before, but opened with a 14-9 loss to the Rams, a 20-19 loss to the Buccaneers, and a 17-10 loss to Jacksonville. So what's that, 29? They had scored 38 points in their first 3 games. Houston had. They scored 44 points yesterday. So, yeah, to your point regarding the Baltimore defense, that ain't great.
Not necessarily great, but one quick thing, though. I mean, you mentioned the Rams, the Bucks, and the Jags. All 3 teams are looking pretty solid. Then you get into the Titans, and you got a hapless Ravens squad yesterday. The Texans, as bad, as putrid as their offensive line and as head-scratching as those decisions in the offseason were and have been, they're slowly, finding their rhythm. And despite the fact they got Woody Marks, who actually doesn't look half bad as far as running the football, despite the fact they've relied on him as far as their rushing, their offense is kind of slowly, ever so slowly, starting to look like what we thought that it might potentially be.
Yeah, NUBYJAS kind of alluded to this situation when we had him on a couple of segments ago. Fox Sports commentator and former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez was involved in an incident Friday night in Indianapolis, and initially it was kind of characterized as him getting attacked and stabbed, and then as the situation continues to develop, eventually Sanchez was charged with felony battery after apparently engaging with a guy picking up cooking oil at a restaurant in downtown Indy. There was an altercation. The guy tried to pepper spray Sanchez, which kind of indicates that Sanchez was the instigator in the whole situation. Eventually, Sanchez got stabbed a number of times in self-defense, was hospitalized, seems to be okay. But again, initially charged with 3 misdemeanors. Now one of those has been upgraded to a felony. Odd situation. You just don't expect to hear about this kind of stuff involving, your TV talent of all people.
Yeah, wild situation. Like you said, we got the initial story, and we're thinking, okay, one kind of version, and then, woof, it has changed. And a rough night for Sanchez, to say the least. It was very odd, like you said. He's doing wind sprints. My man's doing wind sprints in an alley. To NUBYJAS' point earlier, it feels like he was on something, perhaps a mind altering a little bit yesterday. And, I feel bad. My good friend Adam Amin, he was already doing the Tigers and the Tigers and the Mariners game on Fox on Saturday night, getting ready to fly to Indy and do the game. Not only is he perhaps, going to get paired with a new partner, they just yanked him entirely. They replaced him and that whole crew yesterday as Chris Myers and Brady Quinn filled in instead. So it's a very unusual situation. Lesser people on the internet pointed out that the Raiders defense and Mark Sanchez both had a few things in common. They were kind of getting carved up, if you catch my drift, up by the Colts in Indy over the weekend. So it was a rough situation. My man's in a fight with 60-year-olds out here on the streets of downtown Indy. Hope everybody's okay.
69-year-old, almost 70, just for what that's worth. Yeah. Felony charge of battery involving serious bodily injury is what Sanchez is now facing from Marion County as a result of this situation. So waived his initial appearance, is expected to appear in court November 4th on these charges. Stay tuned. That's wild.
This is wild. I mean, we're talking about a guy that, was involved legally, I suppose, at the time in the state, but involved with a relationship with a 17-year-old when he was earlier in his life. Then, obviously, he's perhaps more famously known for the butt fumble, and now this. It has been a wild career for young Mark Sanchez, to say the least.
38-year-old Mark Sanchez. He's done a lot of living in a short period of time.
Ain't no doubt.
Woke up this morning to news out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, that apparently North Carolina's athletic social media team had been banned from tweeting or retweeting any New England Patriots related good tweets. Apparently at the direction of former New England Patriots and current Tar Heels coach Bill Belichick. That has been reversed according to an article on NBCSports.com. And North Carolina immediately responded by tweeting out a tweet praising Drake May for his performance last night in the Patriots 23-20 win against Buffalo. I would imagine Belichick has or had a press conference today following their atrocious loss to Clemson over the weekend, 38-10. But it would just seem like to me, surely you got better things to be worried about than that, don't you? Shouldn't you?
You would think, but we're not necessarily dealing with a normal situation by any stretch of the imagination down there. And yeah, you're right, man. I feel bad for the workers and the interns there that put together all those sweet edits of Drake May and are ready to put them out on social media. Mac Hollins there on the Patriots too, formerly of UNC, and then poof, you can't even use the stuff. It feels bad to kind of see some of that stuff go down the drain. Hopefully cooler heads prevail, and it sounds like maybe we're getting that direction. But yeah, nothing about this is normal. Hasn't been from the jump, and I imagine won't be until such time that he departs.
Which may not be very long at this rate. Things are not going well on the field for the Tar Heels. Things are going well, or did go well Saturday for another North Carolina team, specifically Western Carolina quarterback Taron Dickens, who set an NCAA record against Wofford on Saturday, completing his first 46 passes. 4-6. You couldn't do that against air, but apparently Dickens could. He was 46 of 46 to start the game for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. At the same time, Western Carolina was trailing when he was 46-46. They were down 21-20 when Dickens finally threw his first incompletion on his 47th attempt. Dickens wound up 53 of 56 for 378 yards, 3 touchdowns. Western Carolina did win the ball game 23-21, but again, 46 straight completions, and he had ended his previous game with 4 straight completions. So at one point he was 50 for his last 50, which sets an NCAA record as well for consecutive completions in a season. His 46 straight completions against Wofford obliterated the previous record of 29 set by Princeton quarterback and former Christian Academy of Knoxville quarterback Quinn Epperly back in 2014. 46 straight completions.
Crazy stuff, right? And as fate would have it, I'm reading a thread here on a Clemson message board, and they're saying, hey, maybe we should get involved with this guy. I know we don't do the transfer portal thing, but 53 of 56. You still need the walk-off field goal to beat Wofford, but the individual prowess, man, 53 of 56 for 380. Yeah, that is cooking. Yeah, maybe bring this kid on down to Clemson, right?
You know, when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking Western Carolina better get whatever they can out of him, because unless he's a senior, he ain't gonna be back. So, and when you see, you know, the kid over at that's down at Ole Miss that transferred in from Ferris State. I mean, quarterbacks are all in the portal, so there's probably somebody talking to him right now, legally or otherwise.
Yeah, Trinidad is whispering in this kid's ear saying, hey, you don't have to stay at Western Carolina. You may like it over there, but you don't have to stay there if you don't want to.
A little FCS action. You know, Vanderbilt and Nashville are hosting the FCS championship game in January. So might want to familiarize yourself with some of these FCS programs, particularly when you've got one relatively locally doing as well as Tennessee Tech is. The Golden Eagles improved to 5-0 overall, 2-0 in OVC/Big South play with their 66-20 win against Western Illinois on Saturday. The third game of the year in which Tech has scored 60 points or more.
These guys are rolling. Saw them come into Nashville a couple weeks ago and clobber TSU. They climb up a couple spots to jump 2 spots up to number 7 in the latest rankings. Yeah, get familiar, ladies and gentlemen, with Tech. Austin Peay still sneaking around the chicken coop too. A couple of really good squads here in kind of the greater mid-state area.
Absolutely. Tech has won 10 straight because they did not go to the playoffs last year. Their 10-game win streak dating back to last year is the longest in FCS. And again, the number 7 in the AFCA top 25 poll, number 10 in the Stats Perform FCS top 25. Tennessee State, meanwhile, fallen to 1-4 and 0-2 with their 31-7 loss to Eastern Illinois over the weekend.
Let Tennessee Tech get undefeated until they go to play Kentucky on November 15th. Don't let Tech roll in there undefeated if you're a Kentucky fan, boys and girls.
Oh, goodness. That's not what Kentucky wants to see, I don't think. We'll see how that goes. Let's take a break here as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by John D. Bryce from footballscoop.com. Stick around.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
I'm Maurice Pett, and that's Wade Neely. This is Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Welcome into the weekend wrap-up. Welcome also to FootballScoop.com's John D. Bryce as we continue the college football talk here on this Monday afternoon. Bryce, welcome.
Boys, thanks for having me. Thanks for being willing to reschedule since I couldn't visit last week, and loved the FCS talk as I got ready to come on here. Bobby Wilder is just doing unbelievable things at Tennessee Tech. I visited several times with him. I love that guy's energy. I'm with you, Wade. Like, they could absolutely go up to the synthetic bluegrass and pants the Wildcats. We've already seen Austin Peay go down to Murfreesboro and really control that game in defeating the Blue Raiders. FCS ball in the state of Tennessee is really, really good this year, but particularly Austin Peay and Tennessee Tech, I both think have real chances to make noise in the playoffs.
You know, and again, with the championship game coming to Nashville here in January, wouldn't it be awesome to have a home team in it?
That would be just absolutely unreal. And, you know, Bobby Wilder built the Old Dominion program from scratch 15 years ago and did unbelievable things there. And he's brought that approach. Tennessee Tech is investing like never before in its facilities, and you're seeing it. And they've worked the transfer portal well, even as a FCS school. The quarterback's from Eastern Washington. He's really dynamic. I heard you say 3 times of 60-plus points. I mean, what they did to Chattanooga last month in a huge rivalry game has not happened in that series in a really long time.
And they're kind of setting the tone for when they get ready to go to the SoCon next year too, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Big time sending a message, as you might say.
There we go. How much of a message did Billy Napier send over the weekend? Have we sat here and watched him do it 2 years in a row, Bryce?
Well, he took the first step to take the necessary steps off the gallows, okay? But the hangman hasn't pulled his noose down yet, so we'll see. There's just too many tough games left on Billy Napier's schedule, but they figured some things out. They made some nice adjustments offensively. They discovered a new weapon in the Wilson kid. Lagway played better. I mean, it was a number of things, and they have circled the wagons well, for lack of a better term. But they really have, under Billy Napier, they've been better as an underdog than a favorite, and they're still going to be an underdog a bunch this season. So the hangman's noose is it's not unwound completely, but it's not getting any use this week.
You know, I asked the question about the Titans and Cardinals. I'll ask it about the Gators and Longhorns as well. Did Florida win this game? Did Texas lose this game? And where is Texas right now?
Well, first of all, I'll say Florida absolutely won this game. It would be an extreme disservice to the Gators to contend otherwise, especially when you note that I think their first 3 scoring drives, each of those drives was 10 or more plays. That's not flukish. That's you're imposing your will on the other team. Whereas Texas, I'll tell you right now, Texas has joined Penn State in free-falling from the penthouse to the outhouse. Neither of those programs has a win this year against a power conference team. They've set all the wrong kinds of historical marks and dubious elements by becoming the first 2 top 5 teams to fall completely out of the rankings before the halfway point of the season. It's unbelievable. at least Steve Sarkisian didn't make any excuses about travel like James Franklin did. That ran all over me because we didn't hear Dan Lanning in Oregon say a word the week before when they took their flock of ducks into the whiteout in Happy Valley and painted it green with their overtime win, and then flew back home and went back to business. So there's real problems there. There's real problems. There's bigger picture problems at Penn State because it's so sustained, the futility against good teams, and this was not a good team. It's more of a small picture issue at Texas. They lost so much to the NFL. Arch Manning, for all the hype, had barely played any college football games, and he's got a rebuilt offensive line. He can play better for sure. They need the running game to be better, but the offensive line is the culprit, and the defensive line is not doing enough to get opposing teams off the field, which ratchets up the pressure on the Texas offense.
Bryce, I knew I was in trouble when I thought a Manning would go into the swamp and take care of business this weekend. And you're right, Florida kind of manhandled Texas. I thought this game would be played and kind of end maybe 14-9. I thought it was going to be on the lower end, and I thought Texas would somehow find a way to scrap out an ugly victory. Kind of went the complete opposite, and I'm curious, Florida, I'm not ready to buy all the way in, but I feel like the Gators still have enough talent. I don't know that I'm prepared to predict them to, go and beat A&M or anything just yet, but I feel like they still are capable, and that's what's got to be maddening as a Florida fan is they are capable of producing enough kind of head-scratching moments, good and bad, just like we saw this weekend. Yeah,
that's a great point, and you're right about A&M, and I've seen A&M in person this year. They're a nice team. They're not a complete team. I don't think they're the number 5 team in the country right now, but they are right now, and they've won every game put in front of them. So I think that is significant. But Florida, I think this is, to me, is where coaches sometimes are so cagey about injury information, and they're so worried. We don't know how injured DJ Lagway was all training camp or to start the season. He was in that walking boot right before the season started. We don't know how much that impacted him. We know we can see the adjustments they've made on the field. We can see now they're getting the Wilson kid involved. And they always had some dudes or should have had some dudes on the offensive and defensive lines. And I think that's more important than ever before. So you're certainly the loss to South Florida is the inexcusable moment to me for Florida. That's the one that you can't freaking do that. The other stuff, Miami, I think is top 3 right now. I still would probably have Miami behind Oregon and Ohio State. But to me, those are the only 3 teams I believe that have truly separated themselves so far.
And I mean, real quick, while we're talking Florida, it's also, no easy way to put this, but if you don't throw, 1, 2, 3, if you don't throw 5 interceptions versus LSU, maybe that game goes, call me crazy, but maybe that game pans out a different way if you don't throw it over 5 times.
Yeah, look, you turned it over 5 times and you only gave up 20 points and you only lost 20-10. So, yeah, you had to literally give that game away because that's the game that LSU got 5 turnovers and only scored 20 points and only had 54 rushing yards on 22 attempts. So, yeah, this is that's the loss. The USF loss is inexcusable. Going to Death Valley at night to an LSU team that is really good defensively, and Blake Baker is an elite coordinator. You can say woulda, coulda, shoulda, and it's accurate, but you don't lament that loss the way that you do the South Florida loss. The South Florida loss is the one where you're walking around and you got a stain on your backside.
John D. Bryce of footballscoop.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Bryce, you talked about Texas and Penn State both falling out of the top 25. Obviously, Penn State losing to UCLA, 0-4 UCLA, one of those 4 to New Mexico UCLA. Deshaun Foster fired UCLA. You talk about inexcusable losses, and this one falls into that category. We talked to NUBYJAS WILBORN earlier in the show. What happens with Penn State and with James Franklin at this point?
There's not a lot to talk about right there. I'll tell you what maybe I don't know. The chatter out there was James Franklin hoped this year would be really good so that he could potentially springboard into something else, springboard into perhaps the Florida job if it was going to come open. But obviously right now doesn't look like it is. But that was the chatter. James Franklin's not going anywhere. His buyout's $50 million. They're paying him $10 million a year. I had somebody else asking me about this over the weekend. And look, guys, you're not going to fire James Franklin or chase him off at $50-some million. You got Jim Knowles signed, I think, to a 3-year deal. Koltelnicki, the offensive coordinator, is really good. It may not be showing up, but maybe that's the environment because the consistent offensive struggles predate Koltelnicki, and we know what he can do. But you're talking, it literally would be $100 million plus for Penn State to make a coaching change. And that's when you got to start asking a whole bunch of questions like, what reality are we living in? Or do we think we can fund this with monopoly money? Or are we printing money in Happy Valley? Like, where is this coming from? So that's crazy. What happens with James Franklin? Like his skin gets thinner. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that from having dealt with James Franklin enough through the years that he's going to continue to be very prickly about it. And he's going to weave in his tacit excuses, like saying, well, we obviously didn't handle last week well enough and we didn't handle the travel. And I mean, they gained 3 hours and they didn't play the noon game. So they weren't kicking off at 9 a.m. Okay. That to me is significant. You also played at home last week. I got it a little bit last week, before this past weekend, when Lincoln Riley lamented the fact that his USC team played the latest game on Saturday night and then had to travel cross country and play the earliest game in the country. There's a little bit of difference there. This was James Franklin playing at home last weekend and then playing a mid-afternoon game and gaining 3 hours, not losing time in their days. So even when you flew out there, you still added some hours to your day. So big picture, nothing is going to happen to him because they can't afford to do anything, but he's going to continue to bristle and he's going to get pricklier and pricklier for sure.
John, we're talking about coach's stock going down. I'm curious how much, if any, is Kalen DeBoer's stock going up, at least in terms of that ravenous Alabama fan base in your mind after this weekend?
Yeah, it's going way up because he beat Georgia, and then he had to prove that they could handle prosperity, which is what didn't happen a year ago. And, I think I made this comment either I might have made it to a coach I was on the phone with over the weekend or a recent Football Scoop podcast. I would take Alabama 99 out of 100 times if Alabama and Florida State played again. But Florida State had the benefit of hearing that it sucked for 10 straight months after last year's disappointment. And Alabama knew that it had handled Florida State the last time that they played and saw a 2-10 team. And, I don't think that Alabama had the proper focus. That was a road start in a new situation for Ty Simpson, but there's not a chance in the world that I would pick Florida State in a rematch. And so for your question about Kalen DeBoer, he has to continue to take care of business every week. And there's still some marquee games left out there for him to do that because of how much equity was wasted in the Florida State game. But more than ever, college football is a November, December, January sport. It's a playoff sport. And the playoff rankings, the playoff criteria has changed. So Alabama no longer necessarily has to be the SEC champion to get to host a playoff game. Like multiple conferences, teams can host playoff games, and the seeding is the seeding. So if the group of 5 conference champion is ranked 17, that means that they bump the number 12 seed, but they slot into the 12. They don't bump the number 12 seed and slot into the top 4 anymore. So Alabama still has so much that it can accomplish this year.
John, you are a Tennessee native. Did you ever think you'd see a day where Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Memphis were all in the Associated Press top 25?
In basketball, maybe. But no. Not in football. Not at all in football. And frankly, the mid-state team there is still the most surprising of those three to be ranked. I actually just had Ryan Silverfield on my podcast that I host on the Our Coaching Network last week. A spectacular visit. I like him a lot. I think Memphis will be hard pressed to retain him at the end of this year. But with their win over the weekend, guys, the Tigers are now 27-5 in their last 32 games. That is flat out getting it done. And in that streak, they've beaten Florida State at Florida State. They've beaten Iowa State. They've beaten West Virginia. They've beaten Arkansas. They've won bowl games. They've beaten Tulane, which is a great G5 program. So it's surprising for sure to see all three of those there. I think you could contend that the health of all three of those programs certainly has never been as good as it is concurrent.
And you talk about Memphis being able to hang on to him. Obviously it wouldn't be the first time that one of their coaches has bounced out of there for a Power 5 or Power 4 program. You've got Norvell at Florida State, Justin Fuente ahead of Norvell, went to Virginia Tech, didn't work out so well. So it's almost a cautionary tale. Where would you see Silverfield fitting in if he were to bounce at the end of this season?
Well, I've said it going into the season that that Memphis Arkansas game could end up being a job audition for Ryan Silverfield. And I really believe that. And I think he would be a great fit there. His story is fascinating. He started coaching as a student assistant in high school. He didn't play college football. Then he became like maybe the youngest high school head coach in the history of the entire state of Georgia when he became a head coach in the high school ranks in Georgia at either 22 or 23. And by the way, Georgia high school football is pretty damn good. Then he also has two different NFL stints on his resume, including with the Vikings, and I think maybe the other one's the Lions. His offenses are really entertaining. I think he's got a way that engenders people around him to support the program, to buy into the program. I, from afar, really like their program culture. I believe in it there at Memphis. So that's one. That's just one. I don't think Virginia Tech will go that route again. But you don't know what's going to open either. Like every agent that I talked to, and I joked earlier, this is like getting Yankees and Red Sox fans to agree, or this would be like me getting to not say bad things about the Cubs. And that is every agent we talk to across the country right now says, prepare. This is going to be one of the biggest coaching carousels of this decade. And there's a little bit of a stay of execution going on right now at Florida, and there's a little bit of one for sure going on at Cincinnati. But we've already got 5 power conference openings in the sport. Typically, those cause cascading effects. We don't know what else may come open. So right now, I could see Ryan Silverfield being a really good fit at Arkansas, but I think other jobs will open that he could prove to be a good fit as well.
I like that visual there, John. You go from FedEx money to Walmart / Tyson money. I kind of like that. Seeing what Silverfield can do there.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the guy because Memphis has stepped up, and he made that note. He was very candid in making that clear on the podcast last week. But you step up in this era, and you're still a step ladder away, if not a painter's ladder away from being in the upper echelon of what people are paying. Like you can step up and be a G5 team that has a $9 million college football payroll right now, and you're probably a third of the teams you're ultimately going to ask to have to compete against, especially if Memphis becomes that G5 playoff team. And right now they're in as good a position as anybody out there.
You said 5 openings right now?
Yeah, because you've got UCLA, you've got Virginia Tech, you've got Arkansas, you've got Oklahoma State, and Stanford has an interim coach and is going through a search.
Okay. All right. I was not thinking about Stanford. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. If not Napier, who's next? I've been asking a lot of folks this.
Yeah, I know. And I just had somebody on the tip of the tongue that I was discussing over the weekend. It's uncomfortable times on the plains for Hugh Freeze. It's really uncomfortable times down there for Hugh Freeze. So that's one. I'm not saying it would have happened imminently, but Pittsburgh was starting to feel a lot more pressure, and then got a big win over the weekend and just dominated Boston College, which Boston College is in a free fall. But, Pittsburgh had an entirely inexcusable loss at a West Virginia team that is in complete rebuild and held a 10-point lead in that game with about 5 minutes to go. And I like to call that a come-from-ahead loss. Right. And they had a similar, very galling come-from-ahead loss then last weekend at home against Louisville. Then they changed quarterbacks this weekend and absolutely took the governor out of the engine and ran all over Boston College. I still think Pitt's got some losses ahead of it, but that was a significant win for them. So, but there's more. There's plenty more out there, and some of it's not necessarily firings. Some of it's into the season stuff, like what does Kirk Ferentz do? That's an annual question. Kyle Whittingham, I think, almost hung it up last year at Utah. Couldn't stomach the thought of going out with such a disappointing season because he's done so many great things there. I really love the way he's run his program. Utah could potentially make the Big 12 a two-bid conference. I'm not convinced it's there yet. We'll see. But those are a couple of more significant jobs to watch. Let's be honest. Lincoln Riley is, I think, 13-12 in his last 25 games at USC. There's a lot of discontent there. Again, it's sort of my term. They're not done losing. Like, you just look at their schedule, they're not done losing. Right. In fact, they come to Notre Dame in 12 days, and I think they have Michigan this weekend. There's still a lot of meat on their schedule. So things could go from sort of quietly tense to acrimonious in a hurry there for the boys of Troy. And then, again, we've referenced Auburn. You look elsewhere around the Power conferences. I'm kind of monitoring Rutgers and Greg Schiano, even if he does he potentially try to make a move back into the NFL. I do think that I'll have a hard time believing Bill Belichick is North Carolina's head coach to start next season. I really will, especially when the Dolphins' job is going to come open in all likelihood. The Giants' job is going to come open in all likelihood. That's his ecosystem. That's what he knows. I had this stat over the weekend. I love it, guys. And I apologize. I'm probably rambling a little bit. But it took Bill Belichick 366 games, literally the entirety of the Tom Brady era in Foxborough, 2001 through 2019. In 366 games, 3 times they lost by 25 or more points. He's lost by 25 or more points 3 times in 5 games as North Carolina's head coach. I love that stat. You can put it. I don't know if I'll have a tombstone. I don't know. But if I have a tombstone, put it on my tombstone.
Hey, real quick, Bryce. Speaking of tombstones and speaking of stats, you were the only guy that believed in the Huskies this weekend, so I wanted to throw you a bone here. Maryland was one of 3 teams, that had not trailed all season, and they led, 20-0 in that game. But Bryce, folks, says, I like Washington to go in and defy the Big Ten scheduling gods and win that game, and you come out looking like a rose. Not only do they do that, they give Maryland their first loss of the year, so kudos to you there, Bryce.
Man, I appreciate that so much. I've been on a little bit of an island heater lately. I had Virginia straight up over Florida State last weekend as well. And I had one other game. I hit my first 3 straight up island games last week, all in a row. And I know Virginia over FSU was my big one, but I just thought Washington would be the more sound team. Played really good defense. I liked enough of what I saw out of their defense against Ohio State. Defense travels, and October meltdowns happen in Maryland.
They were one of 3 that had not trailed all season. The other stat that I love from this weekend is UCLA had not led at any point this season.
Yeah, exactly.
Before they dominated Penn State. And Nico flashing the goods out there on the West Coast in primetime this weekend.
Yeah, and apparently when things got so bad, it was reported that he told his teammates, like, guys, if you don't want to be here, just leave, which that's probably an entirely different podcast in and of itself. But I saw that on Twitter, and I believed it to be true. In my mind, it will always be true. But it didn't look like one of those things where I was duped. It looked like that might have been
I'm gonna believe that whether it was true or not.
Yeah.
I was trying
that's
to
good
find
enough to believe, man. You
Yeah,
gotta
I'm
love
trying
that.
to find his final stats here, just because he
ran for 3 touchdowns, threw for 2.
Yeah, exactly. I knew he had a really good, a really efficient game, and just did a lot of good that his team absolutely had to have him do. Happy for Jerry Neuheisel. I've gotten to know his dad, Rick, a little bit through our respective jobs. Had dinner with him last November in New York with a mutual friend, and that dude. I think it came out today that Jerry Neuheisel's headset wasn't even working properly the whole game, and he smoked Penn State for 42. So maybe James Franklin will complain that it was unfair. Jerry Neuheisel's headset wasn't working correctly.
Wasn't working.
That could be a new. Hey, real quick, one other final one for me, Bryce. Bigger game this weekend in your mind: Alabama at Missouri. Kind of can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Or Indiana at Oregon. Kind of can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Bigger game in your mind between those top 25 battles.
Yeah, it's Alabama at Missouri because I think Missouri has a chance. If Indiana goes and beats Oregon, you guys have carte blanche, if you're desperate, to bring me on your show next week and tell me what mask I have to wear, and I will wear that mask for the entire time. Indiana should have lost to Iowa. Indiana should get exposed this week, especially because I believe the Ducks had a week off to process and digest their win against Penn State.
Interesting stuff as always from John D. Bryce of footballscoop.com. Love when we can get him on. Bryce, we appreciate your time. Look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Yeah, I love visiting with you boys. Real quickly, I've got a story running this week for TSSAA about Lou Graham, the former Father Ryan championship golfer who won the 75 U.S. Open, but it's actually the 70th year anniversary of him winning the individual boys state golf championship for the TSSAA, a really neat feature that I got to work on for the association. So that will be on the TSSAA website and anywhere else.
It is on the TSSAA website. You can go to TSSAA.org to check that out. It is state golf championships taking place this week up in Sevierville. So good stuff from John Bryce. No shock, man. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
See you soon.
All right. Let's take our final break here on this weekend wrap-up Monday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back. Let's wrap things up. Stay tuned.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it. But it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
It is the final segment of the weekend wrap-up here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. On the pitch, the Nashville Soccer Club went to CF Montreal, I guess that's Club de Football in French, Montreal, and picked up a 1-1 draw, so they did get a point. They didn't get 3, but it's better than none, I guess. But that was, I don't know. Maybe that was a little anticlimactic this weekend ahead of the U.S. Open Cup celebration that they had yesterday afternoon out at Geodis Park following their midweek win out at Austin for the first major sports title in Tennessee State professional sports history. And I guess it was a little bit easier to celebrate yesterday after the draw than it would have been after a loss. So good stuff there.
100%. Yeah. And that was the goal, was to at least get a point. After the week that you just had, a point is precious, because I don't know how, like I said as we closed last week, I don't know how in the world I could not imagine being a member of the team, a member of the staff, anybody, and rallying after you win Wednesday, you celebrate throughout the night, get back, and then turn right around and have a real odd trip in terms of going not just on the road, but going internationally on the road too. So kudos to them for at least getting a point. Yeah, a win would have been nice, and you're still kind of sitting there at 54 points. Not the greatest, not the worst, which is kind of what we had maybe deep down thought about this team entering the season. And so ride high after the win, grab a point. They had a fun turnout and they had a fun celebration yesterday. The weather held off, so everything is looking pretty good for NSC. And now you go from soccer mode, Mo, where the mid-season tournaments sometimes carry a lot of weight. Now you go back to straight up USA style, where now everybody, all they care about is, can you win MLS Cup? And that will be the focus for this team down the stretch. In a way, it's kind of nice. You have one kind of trophy in the bag, and whatever else you get from here is kind of gravy. So why not go for the gusto here down the stretch if you're NSC?
And so here's the deal. If you're looking at the Eastern Conference table right now, again, NSC has 54 points. They are 6th in the Eastern Conference. Am I right, Wade, that the top 4 teams get home field for the first round? Is that correct?
That's the way I understand it.
Okay. So Philadelphia, FC Cincinnati, Inter Miami, who is NSC's final MLS regular season opponent, and Charlotte are right now your top 4 teams. Charlotte and New York City are tied, actually, with 56 points each. Nashville, to get into that top 4, has to beat Inter Miami, right? And then hope that both Charlotte and New York City lose.
That and Inter Miami has a game in hand. They play this weekend down in Atlanta, which could be tricky, but Atlanta's pretty bad. So you would assume maybe that Miami picks up at least a point there. So they're probably going to be safe as far as the top 3 at a minimum goes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're if you want to get into the world of scoreboard watching, the teams to really watch are for sure Charlotte and New York as you get ready to head into decision day next weekend.
Okay. All right. So there are your marching orders if you are a fan of the Boys in Gold. You're rooting for them against Inter Miami, but you're also rooting for whoever Charlotte FC and whoever NYC FC play here down the stretch.
Yep, and both are at home. Both are at home. The good news is, if you're an NSC fan, it's going to be a little more challenging for Charlotte, as they have Philadelphia at home, and Philadelphia, could potentially be in a situation. I don't know if they might have officially already clinched Supporters Shield, but if they have not yet, it's going to be close. So they could be resting. But yeah, you're going to want to. That's the beauty of when you get to decision day. We'll all start at the same time, and you'll just be scoreboard watching. But you won't get a real picture. A real clear picture, at least, of what you want to root for till after this weekend. But yeah, Miami is still short a game there.
Okay. All right. Vegas 91, Phoenix 78 to take a 2-0 lead in the WNBA finals yesterday. And I think Jackie Young just scored again. 21 points in the third quarter of that game yesterday, setting a record for scoring in a quarter in postseason play, I do believe, was the way that went. So big win for the Aces. They go to Phoenix now for a game 3 on Wednesday. Man, they looked good yesterday.
Look good, and this is the best they've looked all season. Even in the 16-game run, it just felt like they were just kind of taking care of business and kind of winning a few games here, winning a few games there, just going about stacking dubs. But in the postseason, they have not looked great. They have not looked, we're talking about a shot here and a shot there in 2 different rounds that they're eliminated. But in these first 2 games, especially yesterday, they look like the aces of old. And it's because of the play. It's one thing to kind of know and already bank on having Asia Wilson in your back pocket. She's been great and, virtually unguardable at times. But that was the difference that Willie G had speculated when we spoke with him last week, right? As he mentioned, if some of these other players, which is not a bad thing to talk about when you can, quote, throw other players when you're talking about a player of Jackie Young's caliber. She has been dominant, was dominant yesterday. And Vegas looks like the prohibitive favorite at this juncture through our first 2 games.
One of those other players was Jewel Lloyd, who came off the bench for 9 points and 7 boards. But Young finished with 32 and 8. Asia was 28 points, 14 boards, and Chelsea Gray, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 rebounds short of a triple-double. You expect that out of Asia, those triples. But it was Chelsea that scared a triple-double yesterday in that one. And, they look really good going back to Phoenix. If you can get a split in Phoenix, I guess, maybe, and then come back home and close it out. Celebrate in front of the home folks. I guess that would probably kind of be the recipe for the Aces at this point.
Yeah, if you could get, game 3 especially, go ahead and nab a win. Odds makers still have Phoenix with, a puncher's chance. They're a small favorite. Feels like every game is going to be close unless we see a player like Jackie Young kind of go off. Haven't seen kind of that nuclear performance, and we've heard so much about Phoenix and kind of their big 3. Alyssa Thomas has really kind of yet to have a supernova-type game in her own right. If you're ever going to have one, if you're ever going to maybe bank on one, they're going to need it. This is the key game in the series. And luckily for Phoenix, we're talking about them shifting to a 7-game format. Otherwise, we'd be talking about Vegas possibly closing this thing out on Wednesday night.
Right. Yeah. Thomas with a relatively pedestrian performance yesterday, 10 points, 6 boards, 5 assists. It was Sabali and Copper that did the damage. Copper finished with 23 points, Sabali with 22 and 9 for the Mercury in that 91-78 loss. Again, game 3, Wednesday night down in Phoenix. NBA preseason action for the Memphis Grizzlies begins tonight as Detroit comes to the FedEx Forum. The Grizzlies will be without Ja Morant, who sustained a sprained ankle during practice yesterday. Jaren Jackson Jr. also out tonight. Zach Edey also out tonight. Sounds like the Grizzlies are in danger of starting this year about the way they ended last year in terms of injuries.
Yeah, just get everybody healthy. You got a couple weeks till the opener. Preseason is all about getting the youngsters some run, getting the old dogs healthy. Let's see what we got coming up in a couple weeks.
That's going to do it for the Monday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Join Wade and Calvin White tomorrow at 2 o'clock. See y'all.